Okay, we are live. Hello and welcome to the MMA Live Chat Show. I'm Rich Davie and it's Friday, August 22nd, 2014. On today's show, we'll be discussing Eddie Alvarez signing with the UFC and the Alvarez versus Cerrone matchup. And we'll probably discuss that other show that we got interrupted on the last time when we did a show there with the storms and internet problems that we were having. On today's show, we have yours truly and Damon Gazelle. Thanks for taking part in another show, buddy. Appreciate you taking time to be here and joining me to discuss the news about Eddie Alvarez and the Alvarez versus Cerrone matchup. Go ahead and say hello to anybody that might be listening, bro.
Good to be with you, Rich. Anybody that might be watching, hello.
Okay. All right, so some interesting news here. Since Scott Coker has taken over at Bellator, he's made a shitload of changes. I mean, he's pretty much undone most of the things that Warren Rebney did within the last month or so before he was released or parted ways from Bellator. And I guess the biggest news right now is that Eddie Alvarez was let go. I mean, they let him out of the contract that, Rebney was saying that, well, we don't know exactly what's going on here. There might have to be another fight after this fight, and pretty much, before they took Alvarez back to Bellator when, he was sitting out for that year or however long that was when he was in that dispute with Bellator. Initially, they said that all he had to do was fight one more fight if he wanted to go. Then he came back, he fought, he won. And then they said, oh, well, now he has to have another fight. And then we don't know if he's going to actually be released after that fight because we never got to see the second fight after he resigned because I believe it was Alvarez that actually got injured, wasn't it?
I have not checked. I can't remember.
I know one of them got injured.
I think it was Alvarez that got injured because Chandler, I believe, went on and actually lost that fight. Yeah, it was against Will Brooks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So that was a pretty interesting turn of events there because we never did get to see that second fight, and they were holding that over his head. Well, I don't know what Rebney was looking to do. It seemed like the guy had a vendetta out for Alvarez. Plain and simple, he just should have said, "Hey, man, you come back, you fight, you win the fight, whatever, you can go." And then he said, well, no, there's got to be a second fight. And then as the second fight was near, he said, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be, released from his contract. I mean, he might have to fight a third fight. So it was pretty much dirty politics all around. I think a lot of that was probably hurting Bellator too. And, Rebney was just not making friends, with MMA fans because he was just, pretty much being, unreasonable, about so many things. And it wasn't just the Alvarez contract. It was other fighters as well. But in any event, they did let him go. Coker said he's free and clear, no restraints, no matching, terms or anything like that. So the UFC did, in fact, snap him up like they should have because he should be fighting in the UFC. And now we're looking at Eddie Alvarez versus Donald Cerrone at UFC 178 as the co-main event on September 27th in Las Vegas. So what do you think about that, man?
No, man, that card was already stacked, and it got even more stacked now. Wow. It's killer. I mean, I think one of the reasons, too, that they're letting him out of his contract because of the whole restructuring of Bellator is I'm sure he was one of the highest paid guys that they had. And, money does come into play when it comes to that aspect. So I'm sure they were kind of glad to let him go to free up some more money to get some other people in there, because I'm sure what they were having to pay him was probably more than what they would pay 2 or 3 other fighters to compete.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I've made that comment many times in the past, but a lot of people didn't agree with me on that because they kept saying that, oh, well, Viacom has such deep pockets. But yeah, corporations that are public have shareholders that they have to answer to, and when you're hemorrhaging money, you know.
Yeah.
Bellator's whole model was just a stinker of a model with, Rebney in charge. And, I agree with you, man. That's more than likely the reason they let him go, because not only, are they obviously looking to try to save money, but they've also are scaling back the tournament aspect of Bellator. They're not going to be doing a weekly type format any longer. I don't know if you've read the news on that, but they're going to scale things way back. They're going to cut back on the pay-per-views, and they're probably not going to do many pay-per-views at all. I mean, really, they're not really the kind of organization that has the names to actually do pay-per-views. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, when people say, Viacom this, Viacom that, it's, Viacom, yeah, they are the ones that are backing it. They own most of the stock. But Viacom didn't get to where they are by supporting things that aren't going to be big money makers. And I don't think that Bellator right now is a huge money maker. I mean, you can only put so much into something and expect to get so much back. And Viacom knows that there's a limit to how much they're willing to spend unless they see some returns. So unless they see returns, they're not going to spend a ton of money on Bellator to try and get it to be up to where the UFC is. Even the UFC right now is not doing the best in terms of sales of pay-per-views and viewers and watching their events. I mean, it's a niche market. It is still a growing sport, but some believe has plateaued. I'm not sure if that's true. I think the oversaturation of the fights is really a lot is part of the main reasons for that, is because there's so many fights, there's so many cards now, that when they do put on an event, it's not necessarily fighters that people know. And it all comes down to the money. I mean, what are you willing to spend to make Bellator as big as the UFC, if the UFC isn't even doing the best in terms of viewers and pay-per-view revenues themselves, when they are the top guys? So
I pretty much agree with everything that you said there. And before I lose my thought here, I wanted to go back and comment about what you said about not making money, and Viacom, is a big corporation that, if they're not making money, they're not going to go forward and keep on funding something that is hemorrhaging money, which, again, that seems to be like, something that the UFC plays a game with their, competition, where they cut these bigger name fighters who are not going to go fight in the B or C tier organization for, pennies. So it seems like to me that that's the strategy of the UFC: hire all these guys, and then, when it gets to the point where they're not really, winning and bringing in the fans like they, expected them to, they go ahead and cut those bigger name fighters. They let the other organizations, the B and C tier organizations, scoop them up. They have to force them to pay that big money, and then, that hurts those organizations. And that, along with, we never really heard what the true numbers were for that last pay-per-view event that Bellator did. I mean, we heard that the numbers were fudged, but we never heard concrete numbers on it. I'm sure the numbers are out there. But again, that first pay-per-view was a total bust. They wound up going free at the 11th hour, and just before the event was supposed to go on, they decided to put on a spike. And I actually thought that was going to be the same thing that happened with the second pay-per-view. But, maybe the second pay-per-view didn't do quite as well as they needed to, and, Rebney was on the chopping block,
yeah, I think they were already planning on trying to oust him anyways. But yeah, the numbers being fudged is never something good that you want to see, especially if you're a publicly traded company. That really looks bad on your portfolio, that you're going to do something like that. to try and mislead investors, or for whatever reason that they did it, or there's so many possibilities of why they would try to make it look bigger than it was, when in fact that like you said, we haven't actually seen any concrete numbers on how many buys that pay-per-view got. It it probably isn't close to 100,000. I would venture 60,000 at the most. I mean,
yeah, I agree with you, because if they couldn't even sell 10,000 pay-per-views for the initial Chandler Alvarez fight, I mean, come on.
yeah. I mean, I think Tito and the Rampage definitely helped. Those, they are ex-UFC. They are well-known names. People would pay for a pay-per-view with them on it, as opposed to just Chandler or Eddie Alvarez. I think it was a better card, so I think it would have gotten definitely over the 10,000 mark, like you were saying. The other one didn't, so they put it on Spike. It's Bellator is one of those companies. They're restructuring now, and they're a small company. When you're going up against somebody like the UFC, who is, I believe, what you're saying about them probably does stand true, and is actually a pretty smart tactic by the UFC to make the fighters and make these other organizations have to pay more for their fighters. I think that Bellator really needs to get back to the grassroots of MMA and put on good shows and introduce people to their fighters, more or less, than the tournament style things, and pretty much get more how would you say it? Get their viewers involved more somehow. I mean, they've got to do something different.
Well, that's pretty much what Coker said just the other day. He was questioned again about a number of things happening over there, and he did say that's the route that he wants to go. He wants to start building stars in Bellator.
Yeah, and that's what they need to do, really. Because a lot of their fighters aren't well-known names, and a lot of that has to do with either they haven't been in the UFC, or the Bellator isn't reaching enough people for one reason or another. That they need to seriously look into actually start putting some of their events on the internet for free. I think that would help raise their numbers in terms of viewership. And the free thing, you've got cable, of course. A lot of people have Spike and everything else, but there are also a lot of people that don't, that are getting away from the cable programming altogether, in search of and using the internet to watch a lot of their stuff. I think if they would put some of their events actually on live on somewhat like Fight Pass, except for make it a free deal.
That would really give the UFC a run for their money there, because that does need to be done. Because again, we've got the Fight Pass thing here where they're evolving, and they've taken on the Invicta FC organization, and they're also talking about bringing in possibly Metamoris and a couple of other MMA organizations to air on there, or combat organizations to air on the Fight Pass network. So yeah, that would be an excellent business strategy. You ought to give them a call and suggest that to
them. I mean, for real, it's web-based. You've got so many people now that are watching the there's shows off Hulu or Hulu Plus, Netflix. You know, even there was a rumor a while back. I don't know how it was true, but they were uh, trying to bottleneck the your speeds going to Netflix and places like Hulu Plus.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, Comcast got in trouble for that, or I can't remember if it was Comcast specifically, but I know there were a couple of cable providers that were doing exactly what you're saying. They were trying to threaten and throttle and things like that.
So it shows that a lot of people are watching web-based programming. So if Bellator were to put their library and start putting events for free on a thing like Fight Pass and let the first year be free and then start charging after a year, after people have gotten a chance to follow them and to get to know the fighters, to watch the old fights, it's quite possible that they could start building a bigger following and do something with that. You know, I forget. I know there's there's been a lot of things where they have let people try it out for free, and they've let it go on for so long, and they get people interested in it and liking it, and then they start charging, and people they started paying just because they like that product. I know me myself, when I was drinking, they made Coors beer cheaper for a while, and I actually tried it, and then when they went up in price, I actually kept drinking it. It's a smart strategy to start going with a low price or no price to get people interested in something or to like something, and then to start charging money later.
Oh yeah, no doubt, especially in the economy that we're in right now. I mean, geez, everybody is hurting, and then again, the cable companies and television service providers, they're just raping customers. I mean, again, with Comcast, I spend $200 a month for my service, and you could see with this last month, you and I had how many problems doing shows because their service couldn't stay connected.
Exactly.
And that also leads me to believe that, even though Spike is supposed to be in 10 or 12 million households, that, they're not getting the viewers that they wanted, because I don't know if you actually ever saw the Fight Master series, but that was Bellator's version of The Ultimate Fighter, and I actually liked that program. I thought it was interesting. But one season, boom, done, and not hearing anything about ever bringing it back again.
Yeah, I mean that's like what I don't know if you've ever seen Kevin Spacey talking about House of Cards with Netflix. He has this thing. It was a viral video that went out, and he was talking about how hard it is for a show to actually get on television and stay on television. And he's like, there's so many hundreds of pilots, and out of all of those pilots, maybe one show will actually make it to television. Whereas with Netflix, they've got all their original programming, and they don't have to worry about pilots. They just put it on there, and they put it out there for people to watch. And House of Cards, I don't know if you've ever watched it, but that is an amazing show. And they put out the entire season at a time. So you can sit there and watch the whole season, or you can sit there and watch one episode, watch another episode 5, 10, 20 days down the road. But you can... the way it worked out is phenomenal, because they're doing something different, and they've got quality shows. I hear Orange is the New Black is another really, really good show on Netflix. I mean, it's with the internet, they're going to be getting away from television as much as possible, and I think it would be smart for Bellator to kind of take that hint and and try and get more web-based programming on the internet for people to watch to get to know Bellator. You know, me, I personally, I haven't had cable. I don't know how long. I don't. You know, the UFC events I go over to my brother's to watch.
Yeah, I keep telling myself I'm going to dump my cable because it's so expensive. I mean, just to watch the UFC and the Ultimate Fighter, to get the Fox Sports 1 and the Fox Sports 2, those are on the upper band. So, you can't just go in and say, well, I'm going to get the lower band or the lower tier of the service, and then you're going to be able to watch anything that's decent because half the channels on the lower band aren't even in English,
Mm-hmm.
And then that forces you to go up to the digital band. Then in the digital band, you don't have the shit in high definition. Then you have to go up to the high def band, and you have to have 3 tiers. And then if you want other channels above that are sports, then you got to get the other tier. I mean, then they're raping people. I mean, what they really need to do is, I don't know why the government doesn't do this, they need to force these service providers to allow an a la carte means of ordering channels that you want, because it's going to kill the industry eventually. Because, basically what we're all doing here is the people that are paying $200 a month, they're subsidizing all these other networks for people who probably are getting services for free.
Yeah,
I
and
don't even want to go into the political aspect of that, but that's more
like
than
I've
likely
like
what's
I've
going
said
on.
too, though, with cable companies, it's not just the service providers. It's also the networks like Viacom, and you got Viacom's a big one. The Fox is a big one. I can't think of who KSDK is. Is KSDK, is that Viacom
I do
or
not
not?
know
Not
who that even is.
NBC. I think NBC is
NBC,
Viacom.
that's Comcast.
But
Comcast owns NBC Universal.
but the way they set it up is they get these contracts, and Dish, Direct, and Charter, and Comcast, they all have to come to a deal with these big corporations for their channels to be shown. So it's not the service provider necessarily putting the channels in tiers, which they do, but they have to do it, and they have to put so many channels from this corporation in this tier and so many in this tier, so they can afford to pay, say, Viacom for the contract that they have with them and all their channels, because they have a lot. There's only like 3 or 4 major networks that have tons of channels, like Viacom, or I think Bella is part of Viacom, but it's another big one. So it's one of those things. It's annoying. That's why I got rid of cable a long time ago, is because you can't just get the basic setup and get the channels you want. You have to buy.
I agree with you, man. I think that's exactly what's going on, and why, Bellator probably is hurting, because even though they're on Spike, when UFC was on Spike, internet and television service wasn't quite as expensive as it is today. And again, we spoke about this earlier. When you're a corporate entity that's has public shareholders, you have to constantly raise the price of your stock. And typically, the way you do that is by garnering market share. But if you can't get market share, then you raise the price of things to make up for the lack of market share. And I think a lot of people are, in fact, doing what you're saying they're doing, and what I'm thinking of doing is actually just getting rid of TV, because I'm paying for 200, 300 channels, and I watch maybe 3 or 4 of the channels,
Exactly.
So,
I mean,
that
I
sounds
watched
like a really
Netflix.
valid argument that you're making there.
Netflix and Hulu Plus. Hulu Plus usually shows a lot of NBC's programming, like The Blacklist, the day after. If it's like $7.99 a month, but you get a lot of programming that you don't have to have a DVR. You can go to it whenever you want. as long as it's up there, and watch the shows there.
You
Which
know.
I wish they would do that with like the FX shows, because they have a lot of really great shows as well. You
Yeah.
know.
All right, getting back to Eddie Alvarez, for some people who do not know the history of Eddie Alvarez, he started out in MMA back in 2003 for Ring of Combat. He fought there a couple of times, and then he moved on to reality fighting, Euphoria. Then he went to MFC, I believe that's a Canadian MMA organization. And then he went to another organization, fought one fight there. Then he moved on to Bodog for 4 fights. And then he wound up over at Showtime XC. Um, so that was when I guess he really started getting the recognition there, because back in 2008, that was one of the major competitors with the UFC. But from there, he went over to Dream, and he fought over at Dream a few times, and then he had a K1 fight. And in 2009, he signed with Bellator. Um, he fought, I believe, 3 fights in Bellator. Then he went back to Dream and had a fight. And I don't know if they were allowing that within his Bellator contract to do that, but apparently they were, because immediately after the Dream 12, the Cage of the Rising Sun event, he was back in Bellator. And he actually, did fantastic in Bellator, and you would think somebody of his caliber would have actually fought in the UFC, but he actually amassed a 9-1 record over in Bellator, which is pretty impressive. And for some reason, I thought he actually had fought in the UFC in the past, which is why I pulled up the Sheerdorf Fight Finder record on him. And nope, pretty much his entire career, or the bulk of his career, he's been at Bellator. So he's got a record of 25-3. 1 loss by KO, 2 by submission, 14 wins by KO. So this should be an exciting fight. He also has 7 submissions, so going to be pretty interesting. Eddie Alvarez versus Donald Cerrone. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big step up going from Bellator to the UFC. I think he's talented. I think he's gonna fit into the UFC well. The submission losses, going up against Cerrone, that's not a good thing. I don't know. It's gonna be a great fight. I can't wait to see it. I'm actually thinking that Cerrone will win it. I think he's gonna show him what the UFC is like. I mean, Cerrone is no chump. That's not a great first fight to come in to the UFC with and show what you're all about. But you never know. I mean, Eddie Alvarez, he's no chump either, but he hasn't been fighting the caliber fighters that Cerrone has. Whereas Cerrone, he's fought so many times. He fights so many times a year that I don't know too many fighters that can say they've fought the competition that he has.
Yeah, and actually Cerrone's only loss by KO was a kick to the body. It wasn't a headshot. So who knows exactly what the reason for that was. It was against Anthony Pettis about a year and a half ago at UFC on Fox 6 at the Johnson versus Dodson event.
Mm-hmm.
So unless Eddie Alvarez can actually get in there and blast him, not quite sure. I agree with you. I'm not quite sure that Alvarez is going to win this one. Pretty much they're the same height, same record. But I agree with you. I think the fact that he's only got 2 losses. Talking about Eddie Alvarez here, only 2 losses by submission on his record. But I don't know. I'm gonna go with you, and I think Donald Cerrone will actually win this. And as long as he doesn't stand there and try to bang with him, which, you know, that doesn't make sense. I don't see why he would do that.
No. I mean, you know, Alvarez, he doesn't have a lot of losses. He's got, what, 3 losses on his record? So, I mean, but the level of competition, yeah, he has fought Pat Curran and Roger Huerta, but, you know, those were guys that I know Huerta was in the UFC at one time, but he wasn't the same caliber as he was when he was in the UFC. So
No, I was a big fan of Roger Huerta back then, and holy Christ, after he started going on that losing streak in the UFC when he first lost to Kenny Florian, it was just loss. He had loss after loss after loss. He had one win against Chad Hinton at the Bellator Fighting Championship 13, and that was a submission by a knee bar. But geez, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 losses and one win in his last 7 fights. And the last time he fought was back in June of 2012. I don't know what happened to him. He kind of fell off the face of the earth. Did whatever happened to him?
I don't know. Maybe he probably retired.
I heard there was talk about him coming back at one point or another, but
no, it's possible. I mean, there are fighters that take a little bit of time off to kind of relearn, not necessarily relearn, but resharpen their skills. You know, the MMA, the UFC, it's such a changing sport that if you don't evolve with it, it will pass you by in a heartbeat. Guys like Pettis, you know, I mean, that dude is crazy with what he can do. Benson Henderson, he's another fighter that can either, you know, ground and pound you, or he can sit there and play chess with you and win matches against you. You know, he can either stall it or he can win it outright. It's one of those things that if you don't stay on top of your game and you don't evolve with the sport, you won't have a chance. You can't be a one-dimensional fighter. You've got to keep it's I don't know, almost like you, a computer tech. You know, there's always new technologies coming out, and you have to keep on top of these newer technologies to be able to work on them. And it's the same with mixed martial arts. You have to keep training yourself for the new things that come in that are seen in the sport. You know, when Faber came out, he was so big because he fought like nobody else, and he started a bunch of fighters fighting completely different. You know, nobody'd ever seen anybody like Faber. Now you see that when you see some of the stuff he does is commonplace now, and you've got guys like Jones now who totally change it. You see people using the teep kick all the time now to try and keep fighters at bay. It's constantly changing. It's a sport that evolves so much, and you have to evolve with it or you'll get passed up.
yeah. But I actually think it's a good thing because when we're talking about Eddie Alvarez coming over to the UFC, leaving Bellator, he had to leave the belt behind, obviously. He had to surrender the belt in the lightweight division over there. But I think that's probably better for them. Yeah, Michael Chandler, you know, is a talent as well, but he was upset by Will Brooks with that split decision. I don't recall how I scored that fight. I did watch it, but I don't recall how I scored it. But yeah, I mean, that gives Bellator a whole lot of time to recoup and redesign and retool their organization. So yeah, I think it's a good thing overall for everybody because, again, Eddie Alvarez, probably one of the best lightweight fighters in MMA outside of the UFC, definitely deserves to be in the UFC. So Should be interesting.
And if you look at it, Chandler and Will Brooks were fighting for the interim championship, so they already knew that changes were coming. So right now, my guess, Will Brooks would be the one that is the champ over in Bellator. So with him gone, him going to the UFC, we're going to see Eddie Alvarez try and make his way to a title, and I'm sure he's going to do very well. But he's going to have to do it against a much different competition.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, both of these guys are looking at a pretty, good streak going here. I mean, given that loss to Michael Chandler for Alvarez back in 2011, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins and 1 loss, which is pretty damn good, even though it was over at Bellator. And I know a lot of us don't think Bellator is really the, an A-tier organization or a top-tier organization. But let's see, Donald Cerrone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins and 2 losses, which that 1 loss to Rafael dos Anjos, I thought that was a bit freaky there. And then, of course, that leg kick to the body by Anthony Pettis, which was another kind of freaky. I think I bet on Cerrone on those both times and lost.
Yeah, but Cerrone is, I mean, he's one of those guys that you don't see that many people fight that many times in a year. And Cerrone, he's a whole different beast. He comes in, he'll fight 3 or 4 times a year, whereas a lot of guys you'll see him 2 times a year. It's crazy how much this guy fights.
Didn't you say on one of the other shows that we did that he actually fought 6 times in a year already once?
I believe he did fight 6 times a year. I would have to look it up again. I know he had fought guaranteed 4 times because that's what we were talking about. You thought he was going for the record of 4 times in a year, and I was like, no, he's already fought 4 times in a year.
Oh, you're right. That's what it was. Yeah, you're right.
So
that brings back a memory. Yes, you are correct. That's what we were talking about. All right. So, anything more on that matchup there?
I'm just excited for, man, that whole card. That card is looking amazing.
Yeah, Demetrius Johnson versus Chris Carrasco, Donald Cerrone, Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, Dominic Cruz, Takeyo Mizugaki, Tim Kennedy, Yoel Romero, James Krause, Jorge Masvidal. Wow. Amanda Nunes versus Kat Zingano, the return of Kat Zingano. Wow, man, what a friggin' card.
Exactly. I mean, if they could do all their pay-per-views like that, they would have no problem selling their pay-per-views.
Wow. UFC 178, people.
Yeah, that is the card this year.
That's a hell
without a doubt, that is the card to get this year.
Yeah, that's a hell of a stacked card. They should probably do some big numbers on that one, huh?
I would hope so. I wonder how they're going to market it because of how many. I mean, it isn't a card that you just market the top 2 fights. It's a card that you've got to market Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, Yoel Romero,
Dominic Cruz.
I mean, it's
Jorge Masvidal.
Yeah, there's so many. Mizugaki, even. There's so many guys on it. You have to kind of promote the card itself and not the fighters.
Yeah, Bobby Green actually got shortchanged there because he was actually supposed to be fighting Donald Cerrone, so he got bumped from the card in place. Eddie Alvarez is filling the void where he was fighting Donald Cerrone, so kind of a bummer for him, but it's great for the fans.
Yeah. I mean, Bobby Green, he'll get another fight. Cerrone's more of a guy you want to welcome the the ex-Bellator champ to the UFC. You know, Cerrone is one of those guys that is going to throw some wrenches in his plans, I think.
Where is Cerrone ranked? Do you have any idea?
Cerrone, I believe he's number 4 in the UFC rankings.
Is he?
Yeah.
Pretty nice to come into the UFC and get a shot at the number 4 spot right away.
No, well, I mean, he was the Bellator champ.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even if they do say that the other organizations don't really have any good fighters, I mean, there are a lot of fighters that aren't with the UFC that could hang in the UFC. Some fighters just they don't like the UFC mantra. You know, they would rather be a champion somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people were actually saying about Alvarez for a long time. He preferred being the big fish in a small sea, you know.
Yeah. Which, you know, I mean, you still make money there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No, nothing wrong with it at all. I mean, if you're looking to make a living, yeah, fine. Let's any more on that, because I do want to talk briefly about a couple of other things.
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay, we have 2 other UFC events happening tomorrow. UFC Fight Night 48, Bisping versus Kung Lee. Some controversy going on. I don't know if you've seen the picture floating around of Kung Lee. Man, oh man, does he look fucking jacked up. Have you seen that picture?
I'm looking at the UFC picture, and he does look jacked up in that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's going on there, but he's now in his 40s, isn't he?
Oh, at least.
I mean, holy shit, he looks...
42.
Is he?
Yep.
Wow. I mean, and he looks pretty jacked up in that picture there. And actually, Michael Bisping, when he saw that picture, it was brought to his attention. He actually requested some more strict testing, and they're both going to be tested even more sternly. And I believe, actually, isn't Kung Lee actually Vietnamese?
I'm not sure exactly what he
is. Lee is actually Vietnamese because, you know, I have experience with the Vietnamese community.
Yeah, he's from Saigon, Vietnam.
Yeah. So Lee is Chinese and Le is Vietnamese. But it's odd because a lot of people are trying to say that because there is no governing athletic commission over there in China, that maybe some of the fighters were actually juicing intentionally, thinking that they weren't going to be... Now, I'm not saying that Kung Lee was juicing. I'm just saying he looks awfully pumped up.
Yeah.
But they're saying the reason for that being is that a lot of people are saying that there is no athletic commission over there, and if the testing was going to be done, it was going to be done randomly by the UFC. But now that Michael Bisping has requested more stern testing be done, they're going to be doing blood and urine and, I guess, air testing for, you know, PEDs as well. They're both going to be tested for that, and the UFC will be paying for it. But, man, it would be a damn shame if that did, in fact, turn out to be the case, because it would be a wasted fight for Michael Bisping if that's the fact.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, he seems to be, I don't know. It's hard to tell. I mean, at that age, to put on that kind of... it's almost like he's probably on TRT, if he's on anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But TRT is a steroid. I mean, it can be used just like steroids. So it's hard to say. But that picture guy, he definitely looks bigger than he usually does.
Yeah, it's almost freakishly bigger. And I did read a couple of articles on it. His excuse was that, you know, he just got done working out and stepping off the scale, and the picture was snapped in just the right lighting, and so on and so forth. So.
Yeah, I actually might get Fight Pass for this month just to get that card.
Who is on that card?
Woodley's on it with against Dun Young Kim. And then you've got a lot of guys that are coming out, like Zhang Lepeng against Brendan O'Reilly, Ning Wangju against Jiping Yang. It's I think a lot of the guys from the Tough China finale.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what this is. This is. Are they calling it the Tough China finale or no?
No, not that I know of. It's just Bisping versus Lee, UFC Fight Night.
Hmm.
I don't even know if was there a Tough China too?
I believe there wasn't there?
I don't know.
Well, it's only 10 fight card. Huh.
I'm not sure if there was. I know the next one is the strawweight ones, the Tough 20 ones.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try to pronounce half the names on this card.
But
yeah, I'm just taking a look at the card.
I don't think there was a. I think there was only the one Tough China.
Did they ever have a Tough China finale? I don't recall.
Yeah, they did. That was actually an amazing, really, really good event.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah, because I remember you had Fight Pass, so you could see that one, right?
Mm-hmm. And it was Kung Lee was on the thing, so maybe this is Kung Lee's fight from there, but he didn't. They didn't do it like they had done before with, or no, I guess it was. I think maybe Tia Kun Zhang was no, he didn't fight. I don't know if they had uh, the coach versus coach thing on there.
Well, we didn't really see any of these the Asian fighters from China signed to the UFC. Was it a good card? I mean, was the quality of the talent there, or?
There was good fights. They were fighting against each other, but they put on a hell of a card. A lot of good matches. So I think a lot of these fighters are guys from that show. But it's definitely that you can, if you have Fight Pass, I'm sure you can watch the Tough China finale, and you'll see it was a really good show.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny when you're looking at Kung Lee. I mean, the guy has been around since 2006, yet he only has 11 MMA fights on his record. That's going the extreme opposite of somebody like Donald Cerrone. Kung Lee fought 3 times in 2006, twice in 2007, once in 2008, once in 2009, which was his first loss to Scott Smith, who was pretty much a badass back in that day. And then he fought Scott Smith again and wound up getting the win by KO right after that. And then he lost to Vanderlei Silva in 2011, took a break for 9 months or so, and then he came back in 2012 and fought twice, Patrick Cote and Rich Franklin. He hasn't fought since Rich Franklin, and oh my God, I can't believe it's been that long ago, because, man, oh man, does time fly? I don't recall, not fighting for so long now. I mean, November 10th, 2012 was his last fight, so.
Yeah, and he did the Tough China as a coach, but other than that, he wasn't fighting.
So it should be pretty interesting here. I mean, how do you, we're not going to go through the whole card, but just the main event here. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? How do you think it's going to unfold? What do you think, the guys need to do in order to win?
It's going to be a stand-up fight, and I think Kung Lee is quite possibly going to be able to get it with those kicks of his. I mean, we've seen Belfort took out Bisping with the head kick.
Yeah.
Lee's good. His kicks to the body and stuff, my God, he's no slouch, that's for sure.
Oh, no.
And yeah, just seeing him not be in the octagon for a couple years.
Well, he has had a bit of a height disadvantage, and that probably translates into a reach disadvantage as well. I mean, he's 4 inches shorter than Michael Bisping, and we all know that. Well, I say this, a lot of people disagree with me. We all know that Mikey likes to fight, from the outside, and he likes to, jab, work his way back, and he likes to counter when he has the opportunity. So what Kung Lee needs to do, in my opinion, is he needs to get in there early on and quick, because Mikey also has great cardio, and Kung Lee is going to need to get in early on, land some heavy shots, whether it's with his hands or his feet, and that's going to be the way that he needs to win. He's going to have to end it early within, 2-3 rounds. Otherwise, I think it's going to favor Mikey. Who do you like?
Nah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Bisping is going to actually, stay on the outside and pepper Lee. And, right now he is on the win-loss type of deal, and he just had a loss to Tim Kennedy, so I think he is getting the win. I think he's just going to use his boxing and be smart. He's gonna take it. I think he might actually catch Lee and get a TKO, probably in the second or third round.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think he's he's had a couple of losses, Kung Lee has, by way of the TKO. So I think Bisping has the power. And I think when he catches a guy, he likes to capitalize on it, and I think it's possible that he might be able to finish Lee off.
Yeah.
It is a 5-round fight.
Yeah, what I'm looking at here, too, is the 2 losses that he had by KO and TKO. As I mentioned earlier, one was to Scott Smith in round 3 at 325, and then the other one was a TKO due to knees and punches from Vanderlei Silva in round 2 at 449. So, you may be right there. I mean, I also pretty much see it going the same way that you said. I see, Bisping also fighting from the outside, trying to, drag him into the deep waters, probably into round 4. And I'm going to say TKO in round 4 for Mikey.
Yeah, I'll go with round 3 TKO.
Not too much else I want to talk about on that card there. I mean, Tyron Woodley, good luck to him.
Yeah, that's probably the only reason really that I want to get it. The St. Louis guy, so you gotta support your hometown guys.
Yeah, he just made a comment about what's going on over there in Missouri. Did you happen to see that? He came out.
I didn't really see. I had seen he had said something. I had watched something on him, but I guess it wasn't the entire thing. So.
Yeah, I don't want to go into the whole racial aspect of everything. Just, he wanted to come out and, let the people know that they need to chill a bit, and, that's not the way to go. He wanted to show people that, even though you come from a rough area like where the riots are going on in Missouri, there, Ferguson, I believe it is, right?
Yeah, Ferguson.
Yeah, he just wanted to let people know he's from that area, and he says, look, people, fighting like this and rioting like this is not going to get you out of the situation that you're in. He says, I'm an example of it. I'm from the area, and look, I brought myself out of that situation. So nice of him to do that and try to soothe the savages in that area there, because they're out of their fucking minds what's going on there.
Well, a lot of it too, though, is not necessarily the people in Ferguson. there are some people from the surrounding area, but a lot of it, the troublemakers, are people
Yeah.
from outside of
Oh yeah, yeah.
Missouri even.
Yeah, I saw a number where they had arrested 83 people, and out of the 83 people that were arrested, 77 of them were not from the area.
Yeah,
So you got
it's
these
more
opportunistic thugs moving in to take advantage of looting stores and shit like that and rioting. I mean,
yeah, they just want to cause mayhem, and they had a thing. One of the Black Panthers leaders or whatever was one of the guys trying to orchestrate a lot of the actual rioting and stuff like that. The FBI had announced. Um, it's for the most part, it started off they were peaceful protesters, and then you had something happened, and they started rioting and looting. And, I
no,
knew that
there's
was going
nothing
to
wrong
happen,
with
but
peacefully protesting.
yeah,
But
it's being
again,
handled wrong on both sides. The cops have been way too harsh, and
yeah, that's a big issue going on in today's society because I don't know if a lot of people from outside the United States know, but then I would guess that a lot of people from outside the United States probably had a similar problem where the American police force, you know, across the entire United States have become so heavily militarized. I mean, it's frightening. It's like, what in the hell are they gearing up for? Why do police forces need tanks and, machine guns? And yeah, we had that incident out in California with those two guys that robbed the bank out there that went apeshit and, started shooting everybody down that had the death wish. But, I mean, call in the National Guard or if you need, something like that. Don't militarize the entire, police force throughout the entire United States of America. I mean, it's frightening, man.
yeah, they did call in the National Guard at one point for it, and all they did was come in and guard the headquarters for the police, and
Yeah,
then
they
it
actually
calmed
they
down,
never
and
even
they left
they
already.
never even deployed them over there. They just were guarding the building where the police were, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's all they were doing, and it's calmed down. I think the hot weather is actually part of that, but it's all going to start back up again once the police officer is either charged or not charged. If he's not charged, it's really gonna be bad.
Yeah, he's
But
not going to be charged because they've already come out with proof from several witnesses. The initial character that was with this Michael Brown, I believe is the guy's name, the young fellow who was shot. The guy that was with him walking down the middle of the street has already admitted that he lied, and and that Michael Brown wasn't shot in the back. A couple of autopsies have already showed that.
mhm.
Just the police officer has a broken orbital socket. I mean, just so all the shit that was initially speculated upon is turning out to be bullshit. And when you saw the video of the kid in the store, just pretty much thuggery the way he was, goes in, steals $40 worth of cigars or whatever the hell it was that he took, and then he just starts shoving the owner of the store around like.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
pathetic that we're living in a society like this. And again, I've said this before. I've grown up with this racism shit my whole life. Um, back when I was a kid, it was race riots almost every day when I was going to elementary school and junior high school. And, it seemed to chill out over, the couple of decades after that. But, man, oh man, things are ramped up with this new administration that we have. I mean, unfortunately, this administration, seems to embrace people like, Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. I mean, these are
yeah,
two of the biggest race baiters in the world. I mean, they make their living on, racial hatred. I mean, they're not going to want to see racial hatred and racism go away because that's how they make their money.
exactly. Um, yeah, it's sad that the kid got shot. But if he was rushing the cop after he'd already broken the guy's orbital bone, and the cop shot at him. I mean, have you seen the size of the kid?
Kid's a monster.
Yeah, he's humongous. 6 times seems excessive, but when you've got somebody that big, sometimes it's possible that he needed to shoot that many times to stop him. Um, it's hard to say. There's so many different stories. The main thing that I've seen from it though is that the police have handled it horribly, very horribly.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's not just the police. I mean,
no, it
everybody,
is. It is. It really is.
it's
I
not
mean,
just the police. Everybody that's
they
involved
they've
is trying to
they've
spin this
held.
to some sort of a racial issue when that's not the case. It should not be about race. It
No, it
should be
shouldn't be
about,
about.
did you break the law? Did you do the wrong thing? Did you surrender or submit to the police officer when he asked you to? And that's how the whole thing started. The whole thing started from the report of the kid being inside the grocery store or the mini mart or whatever the hell it was. He stole the cigars, manhandled the owner of the store, walked out into the street. He was reported, and the police were called. He was investigating the kid who fit the description of whoever it was that robbed the store. That's how it all came about. It
No,
has nothing to do
Darren Wilson.
has nothing to do with race, and that's what everybody is trying to make this story all about. It's
Well,
got to
actually,
do.
Darren Wilson wasn't the police officer wasn't actually on that call for the strong arm robbery. He had actually confronted the two, just telling them to get out of the street because they were blocking. They were walking in the middle of the street. Um, he had just come off another call and he was going toward doing something else, and it wasn't to do with what Michael Brown had done. Michael Brown, I believe, thought maybe that the cops were onto him for what he had done, but this cop in particular was not there for that reason. The cops have been in the wrong. Freedom of speech has been suspended by the police. They've been making rioters, or not rioters, but protesters, telling them that if they're there for more than 5 minutes, they've got to move and they've got to be in a certain area for the free speech. And if you've been,
Well, that's pretty much how protest works. When you're having a protest, you can't just assemble unlawfully. You have to go to the city and you have to say, hey, we want to have a protest. Here's where it's going to be, and you're confined to that area. You can't just roam the streets protesting, walking up and down the streets. That's how the law works.
well, I understand that, but
But
there's also
I do see your point with the other thing, though,
the
because
police
yeah, there
have
were
been.
reports that the police were not permitting the press to actually do their job. But then again, too, I mean, the press were more along the lines of inciting shit, for ratings. I mean, it's really pathetic. I don't want to go a whole lot into this, but again, like I was saying earlier, it's a shame because it looks like we've actually, taken a giant step back as far as race relations go, and it's really a shame because again,
Yeah.
going through my whole life, I've lived this. I mean, I'm from New York originally, and I went through the race riots, and the burning down of the schools and the beating people up and the muggings. And I mean, I went through that shit in New York, which was why I was so glad to get out of New York when I did. But again, now it's like we've taken a step back, and it's like we're back in
Oh yeah.
the
I mean,
60s and 70s.
look at the Trayvon Martin case. That was another case where the president commented on it, and I mean, as a sitting president, you should never comment on a race type thing, especially he's a black man, and it's a case where it was a black kid, and the other guy was a white type guy. He's not actually white. I I believe he was Puerto Rican or something
Yeah, he
like
was.
that.
Yeah, he was half Jewish, half Spanish. I can't remember what his Spanish half was.
But it was one of those things where they were trying to make it into a racially motivated thing, and it's you know it, we've taken a big step backwards, and it's you know we finally get a president in there that is of color, and everybody thinks, a lot of people that voted for him think, well, we're on the right path, and actually now we seem to be sliding back down that path and going more toward a racial divide
Oh, did you
than
hear
we
the
ever
news
were
about
before.
the band of characters that the government sent in there to investigate?
Uh-uh.
Oh my God. I mean, you're not going to hear this on mainstream news because they don't tell you the truth on mainstream news, and they've got a spin that they're looking, to cover. But, Holder, who is a racist in the first place, and just going back and talking about these individuals that are in charge of government now. Okay, these are all radicals from the 60s. And these are the people that are in charge of the government. It's like they've almost got a vendetta where they want to get back for shit that happened in the 60s. I mean, it's just fucking insane. But Obama sent in Holder, and Holder brought in with him a bunch of, civil rights activists who were involved in all kinds of racial, you know, trials and things like that, where they were busted feeding information from a trial to the public to get the public to believe. I mean, we're just so corrupt, this government that we have. I mean, but yeah, let's get off this because people are going to hate. But I just want to say this, just remember this, people. Time to get off of this whole race thing, because it all comes down to it. We're all of the same race. We're all of the human race, and the pigmentation of our skin, should not really matter. And again, Martin Luther King, man, if he could see what was going on today in the world, he would be so disappointed because, again, it comes down to judging individuals on the content of their character, rather than the color of their skin. And, we're not seeing that, as much as we need to. People are trying to make everything about race because everybody has an agenda. They want to spin things for ratings and, support of, individuals. And it's not, again, it's not just black and white. I mean, it goes, pretty much across the board as far as all the races go. But again, people, man, we're all the same race. We're all the human race. Doesn't matter what color your skin is. There's scumbags in every race. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
All right, let's move on there. I did want to talk one more time about that other event that's happening this weekend. Normally we would do an event poll for these where we do a pick 'em contest, but I wasn't real, happy with the choices of fights and things like that, so I didn't bother even putting an event poll contest together for these. But we got the UFC Fight Night Henderson versus Dos Anjos event coming up on Saturday as well. That's going to be after the China event. Any comments on that one?
Another event with another event in the same day. I'm looking forward to seeing Carmont fight again. Mike Powell and Henderson versus Dos Anjos. Should be a good fight. I don't know, but other than that, other than like Holloway, but Holloway's fighting a guy, Clay Collard. I've never heard of this guy. Holloway's a good fighter. It's too many cards.
I know neither one of us prepared to do predictions for this, but just real briefly, off the top of your head. I didn't even research this card or look at anything on it because I wasn't real excited about it, to be honest. But Benson Henderson versus Rafael Dos Anjos, or Dos Anjos. I've heard it pronounced so many different ways. What do you think of that fight? How do you think that one's going to unfold? Just briefly.
I'm thinking probably Benson Henderson decision.
I'm going to go with you, Benson Henderson by decision. Okay, and then the next one I hear people talking about, they were making a big thing out of this fight here on UFC Tonight the other day. Mike Pyle versus Jordan Meehan.
Yeah, I don't know, I like Pyle, but I think Maine's he's young. He might actually have Pyle's number on this one. I'm actually going to go with Jordan Maine by decision.
Yeah. Yeah, both these guys are pretty close in records there. I mean, I see a lot of people are actually favoring Meehan. Um, but yeah, I guess I'm gonna go the opposite way. What did you say?
Jordan Main,
Bye.
decision.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with you on that one too. So holy shit, you and I are 2 for 2. Okay, and Francis Carmon versus Teles Leites.
Yeah, that should be a good fight. I'm gonna go with Carmont. I think TKO in two actually.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with you on that one as well. Boy, we're right down the line so far. Okay, Max Holloway versus Clay Colliard. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce that fellow's name, but is this guy new to the UFC?
I'm not sure if he's had any fights in the UFC or not. No, not that the UFC site showing. I'm actually gonna go with Holloway on this one. I believe he's gonna get it by round 2 TKO on that one too.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty big fight for the fellow coming into the UFC. And I just checked on ShareDog. Yes, this is his first UFC fight, and Max Holloway is a pretty tough opponent to come up against.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, he's only lost just recently to Dennis Bermudez and Conor McGregor, and then back in 2012 he lost to Dustin Poirier. So tough fight for this fella coming in.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, looking at his record, he's 13-4, 8 KOs, 2 submissions, 3 decisions, 2 losses by submission, and 2 losses by decision, and 1 no contest. So yeah, I'm actually, without even really knowing a whole lot about that fella, what are you going with? Holloway by?
TKO in two.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go. Look at this fella's record again. I'm going to go with Holloway by submission in 2. So the first fight that we deviated on, but we both think Holloway will win in 2, so not too bad there.
No.
And then James Vick versus Vladimir Larazzo, or Lazaro. You familiar with that fella?
Mazzaro.
Yeah,
No clue on that one.
I don't know who that fella is either.
Mazzaro's got 75% of his wins by KO, TKO. I'm gonna go with him by TKO in 1.
Well, he's obviously Brazilian. TKO, huh?
Yeah.
And this guy, James, these are 2 unknowns that have not fought in the UFC, right?
Yeah, he hasn't fought in the UFC. Vic,
Oh no, this guy Vic fought
Vic
Ramsey Najim.
Ramsey Nimjum, yeah.
And that fellow was pretty tough, wasn't he? That Ramsey Najim.
Yeah, I believe he's a tough alumni.
9-4 record. Yeah, and after James Vick beat him, he came back and beat Justin Edwards and Beneil Dariush. Wow. Pretty interesting there.
Yeah.
I think. Who are you going with?
I'm going with Lazaro.
Bye.
TKO in round 1.
Yeah, I don't know enough about either of these guys to be perfectly honest. I'm just going to go with Lazaro by decision. Okay, and does that pretty much cover that one?
There's one more, the Chaz Skelly versus Tom Maki.
Ninamaki, yeah.
I think I'm just gonna go with Skelly by decision.
Oh yeah. Geez, man. Again, I'm just going to take a real quick look on ShareDog there because neither one of these fellows are causing me to think anything spectacular.
No. Unfortunately not. No.
Oh, hang on. Give me a minute there. Go ahead and fill the airspace while I'm looking them up.
I mean, it's one of those cards that, I mean, there are certain fighters, certain fights. There's a couple good fights on there, but you have a lot of fighters that a lot of people know going against fighters that you don't know, like a lot of people know who Neil Magny is, but maybe not necessarily Alex Garcia. Ben Saunders against Chris Heatherly. I'm not sure who Chris Heatherly is, but I know who Ben Saunders is. It's one of those types of fights, with Dariush going against Tony Martin. The fighters got to get in there, got to get their fights in the UFC somehow to get a name. Unfortunately, they happen to be on cards that there's not too many big fights, so they don't really get as much recognition, or people don't remember them as much.
And man, oh man, looking at the difference in the two records on these guys, Minamaki 21-6-1, and Skelly 11-1.
21-6.
21-6. Yeah, 21-6-1. Yeah. Yeah, but that's pretty impressive. And then when you're looking at this other fellow here, this
11-1.
Yeah, 11-1. I mean, that's and didn't he just have a loss recently?
Who, Chaz Kelly?
Yeah, his last fight in the UFC, his first fight in the UFC was a loss. Came over from Bellator.
Yeah, round 3 decision.
And I don't even know who that fighter is that he fought.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I don't even know.
They're saying here on ShareDog he's a prospect to watch.
And
are you hearing that?
Huh?
I gotta kill this. All of a sudden a video popped up. Yeah, I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm not familiar with either one of these fellas here, but you're going with Skelly by
decision.
I'll go with you on that. So we pretty much agree down the line there with the exception of which fight was it?
Holloway and Collard. I went with TKO. You went with submission.
Yeah. All right. So anything else on that card that you want to talk about? Any women fighting on that one?
No.
I wish they would put the women on TV more frequently. I mean, why save them for pay-per-views?
Well,
shortchanging the women. They're doing them a disservice. I mean,
there was just women on this last card. I mean,
who fought on the last card?
Was McMahon and can't think of her.
Smith.
I don't think it was Smith. She was actually Murphy.
Oh, Murphy, yeah.
Lauren Murphy.
Yeah, Lauren Murphy. I thought she actually won that fight.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I mean, because when you looked at the numbers on that one there, she
193 total strikes.
Yeah.
Compared to 64.
Yeah, and 80 of the strikes were from the ground, and I don't remember what round. I think it was round 2 and 3. But man, oh man.
Yeah, McMahon, they gave her a control of 1041, but just because you're on top of somebody, if you're eating shots,
exactly.
How is that control? I mean,
yeah, if you're laying there like a blanket on your opponent and you're taking shots while doing so, you're losing.
Exactly.
I mean, because as far as I understand, when you're in guard, that's neutral position.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bad call, I think. Just look at the total strike, 64 to 193. I mean, almost over 3 times as many strikes.
Yeah, there was a lot of controversy about that now that you mention it, yeah, because a lot of people were saying, oh, yeah, but they were pity-patter. Yeah, but, if nobody is doing anything as far as significant strikes, then you got to go to the plain old strikes,
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of whether they're big strikes or not, she's scoring points when the other fighter is just pretty much laying on the opponent. And that was a true lay and pray event, if you ask me, for lay and pray win for Sarah McMahon.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad fight for McMahon. Well, Murphy looked great. She was working off of her back.
Yeah,
I thought she was hurting McMahon more than McMahon was hurting Murphy. That's for damn sure.
I agree with you. Oh, and one more thing I did want to mention, War Machine, they finally caught that sick bastard.
Yeah.
Man, that guy has issues, man.
You think? He probably
Yeah.
was on some roids. That sounds like a roid rage type of deal.
I mean, it's just sick when you go back and you read, the accounts of what transpired. I mean, that guy should not. Thank God they caught him. I don't know if it was actually Dog the bounty hunter because Dog actually came out when he heard the story and said, "Hey, you got 24 hours to turn yourself in. If not, I'm coming after you." And Dog the bounty hunter was actually there when he was caught, but I don't know if Dog was actually involved in the apprehension of War Machine. But the fellow's sick and he needs to be locked away.
Yeah.
For good. He's not fit to walk the streets. And also, Phil Baroni came out in defense of War Machine. I don't know exactly what it was that he said, but he tweeted on Twitter, "I just got cut from Bellator because of war." Bellator came out and disputed that fact. It was actually Coker, I believe, that came out and said that he wasn't cut for that. He was cut for some other reason. I'm not recalling exactly right now what that reason was. But it's funny, another change that, Rebney brought Baroni in, which I kind of thought was funny because he's another one of those characters, kind of like does the glitz and glamour WWE type thing. And Coker gets in there and he cuts him. I don't know if it was, in fact, War Machine support or not that got him cut. But apparently, according to Coker, that wasn't the case. So, in any event, Phil Baroni is now without a home. He's one step further away from getting back to UFC, which I don't think is ever going to happen again. But I don't know. Maybe he'll find a home elsewhere, maybe over at WSOF. But again, Coker said he's going to start cleaning up and getting rid of some of the characters that they have over at Bellator, because we mentioned this in the past before. Bellator has actually taken out some guys who have criminal records and things like that. So maybe Coker and Viacom isn't really a big fan of that, or the shareholders or whatever aren't happy about that. But who the hell knows? But Phil Baroni has also been cut from Bellator. Any other news that you can think of?
No, not really.
Okay, and one more thing there. Apparently, over at Bellator, they are going to be bringing back a women's featherweight division. Have you heard anything on that? Because I hear they've actually signed 2 women at 145 over at Bellator now.
Do what now?
Bellator, they're bringing back a women's 145-pound division, and
Oh yeah.
from what I've seen, they've actually signed 2 women.
Yeah. I think, wasn't it Gina Carano they were trying to go after?
Yeah, they actually met with her, and I think I did an article on that, or I mentioned it on the site, where Coker came out and said he didn't actually meet with Carano. He met very briefly with Carano's manager, and it wasn't really a substantial conversation, but they did chat, and things are still open as far as that goes. But there was a couple other fighters. I can't think of who it was off the top of my head who they did sign. Mordus Kunin, and then there was another female fighter that they recently signed as well. I can't recall who that was, but I mean, yeah, I still think that's probably the best way to go for Gina Carano. I mean, I did read an article the other day that said Carano was actually looking to fight at 135, which I thought was kind of surprising. So I don't know. Maybe since she's heard that Justino wants to fight at 135, maybe she wants to try to get in and fight Justino at 135 and try to avenge that loss. Who knows? But again, we're seeing from the UFC that DFW and Ronda Rousey just had a meeting the other day and saying that the fight between Justino and Rousey may happen or could happen if Justino signs with the UFC and makes weight at 135. So everything's so kind of shaky with the women, man. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's still pretty new. Still pretty new division, or not division, but new to the UFC. Yeah. Just gonna have to see how things play out. I can't wait for the strawweights to come in.
I'm so dying to see this season's tough, man, and see the result of that, because that's going to be the crowning of a champion when the tough season is done. So, and there's a lot of good talent in that strawweight division on tough this year. I mean, wow. I just can't wait. I think September 10th is when that starts.
I believe so.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Paige. She's fighting. When is she fighting?
I heard she just got hurt recently. Didn't I read that recently?
Did she?
I thought she did. I thought I saw her make a post on Facebook. I follow her on Facebook. I thought I saw her post something on Facebook where she was making a sad face, and I don't recall the whole thing about it because she doesn't really go heavy into details on some things. But I think she was a
spinal injury.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to see her fight too. She's only 20 years old, right?
Yeah. She might not be able to fight October 4th. So.
Yeah. And then we have that new girl, Jin Yu. What is her name? The other girl that I follow. She got some heavy hands. Jin Yu Frey, I believe it is.
Who?
Jin Yu Frey. I believe that's her name. I could be butchering that as well.
Yeah, it's God, with so many cards, so many fighters. It's hard to remember all these names and fighters, especially.
Yeah. Well, we covered quite a bit of material here, and we, as usual, went off topic and covered a couple of things, but we always try to bring it right back.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a great show. I enjoyed it, my friend.
Yeah, same here.
Anything else you want to talk about real quickly?
No, that's about it.
All right, I don't know when we'll do another show. I guess it'll be a post-event show. I will watch the pre-event that's on Fox Sports 1. So maybe on Sunday we can get together and speak about that one as a post-fight show.
Sounds good.
Okay, my friend. Thanks again for showing up and being here. Appreciate it. Don't know where everybody else is. We keep setting up shows to do with people, and when it comes time to do the recording of the show, they can't make it for one reason or another, which is unfortunate because I really miss having a couple of the guys on the show. It'll be nice. It would be nice if we had 4 of us on the show again at the same time.
Yeah, it would. And it's good to see you got your internet shit worked out.
Oh, yeah, that was so frustrating, man. All right, my friend. Thanks again for showing up. Appreciate you being here. We'll get together again probably on Sunday, and now's the time to say goodbye. So if you want to say goodbye, go ahead and do so.
All right. Have a good one, Rich. Have a good one, everybody that's watching.
Okay, buddy. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
Take it easy.
All right. Bye-bye.